This Engadget Podcast is brought to you by Chevrolet, dedicated to pushing the boundaries of automotive innovation to provide cleaner, more efficient, and better connected vehicles to enhance your driving experience. Chevrolet, find new roads. My name is Brian Heater. Welcome to the Engadget Podcast for the week of November 18th. Joined, am I right, by Terrence O'Brien?
Yep.
Good.
Me.
It's been a week or two.
Yeah, something like that.
I didn't have to spell it. That's why I got it right. That was the key. And Ben Gilbert
Hi.
on the far right.
Or Gibbler, depending on which managing editor of Engadget you're talking to.
Yeah.
I like Gibbler.
Is that a Trout thing?
It is.
That's why did I even have to ask? Yeah. Wanted to kick things off by doing, I don't know if housekeeping is the right word, but mention that actually we did do some housekeeping on the website. We've got a new website.
We do.
It's
Completely new.
Engadget.com.
Oh, is it?
We've fired the entire writing staff.
All new.
All new. Mostly maintained by stuffed animals right now.
Mm-hmm.
No, it looks nicer. It's cleaner. I like it. It's got a product database in
Wider
it.
images.
Yeah.
Important
A
stuff.
whole 10 pixels wider. It's life-changing, literally.
That's right.
It'll change your life.
Yeah.
You'll have to go out and buy a new monitor, probably.
Yeah.
That's why it's going to change your life. You're gonna be broke and destitute. So check that out over at Engadget.com. Wait, it's just such a weird thing. I'm realizing how ironic it is that I'm telling people to check out our new website, being that probably the only way they got to this video was through our new website.
Yeah, they're
Yes.
staring at it right now.
Hit the back button.
Well,
freeze
maybe
the
we can talk
video.
about what it means for the site, right? And like where this is going, kind of bigger picture. This
Yeah,
is
you
the
wanna-
beginning of the moves
You
of
want
bigger stuff,
You want to
right?
blue sky it?
Yeah. I think this is really a different approach to content management on the internet.
It's
We're
really,
really gonna
easy
change
to
how technology is-
monetize a product database, and that's very important. That means we could buy new microphones. It means
That's
we can
right.
buy more stuffed animals.
Right.
That means Ben
We
can
don't
buy
have
a
to
second
fire
hat.
Brian.
I could.
Yeah.
I could.
So check that out over at theverge.com. So obviously the reason why Ben is here is to talk Nokia. Got
Of
a lot of
course.
Nokia
I'm a
related
huge
news.
Nokia fan. I learned how to say that word recently.
Nokia?
Nokia.
That's the
It's like
Nokia?
gnocchi.
That's the it's the potato based
Right.
potato-based
the potato-based cell
company.
phone company. Exactly.
That's why the G is silent.
Right.
Nokia.
Right.
No, it's we touched. I don't want to say. Well, we talked PS4 last week.
Who was here last week? Who did that?
The three people you would want to talk about PS4: me, Mark, and Peter.
Sure.
Peter, who has come out and said that he's not going to buy one because he doesn't want it to taunt him because he's going to have no time to play it.
Right.
You, however, have time to play it because it's your job to play it.
It is my job to play it. That is literally the only time
You've been
I've
abdicating
playing it.
all other life's responsibilities just to play it, right?
I fell asleep sitting last night at a table.
Does it?
It was
Does
pretty
it?
awesome.
Does it hamper your enjoyment at all? Like, I mean, this is the question, right? Like, do you want to get into a job where you're reviewing something that you enjoy doing with your downtime?
I
does
care
it make,
more now than I did
care more
before.
now?
Yeah.
It's not
for
a
while,
chore to
There was
play
like a
video
year
games.
where I was super burnt out and wanted to never play a video game again and was resenting the game industry. And I don't know what happened, but that changed. Like, there's these things that happen throughout the year, like the Game Developers Conference, or when a new console comes out, or, I mean, that's not that often, but something
Yeah.
that really rejuvenates you, that actually makes you care about this stuff again, that helps. And it's nice because I get like a more direct insider view of this stuff. Like, I can actually talk to a developer and get a more interesting perspective on something. And I don't know. I still like it for sure.
It's a bummer.
Sure.
It's a bummer that it happens every like 8 years or so, or once
I don't know. I wouldn't call it a bummer.
No. What I was going to say, it's a bummer that it happens. This great rejuvenating thing happens every 8 years or
Yeah.
so, and that two of them happened within a week of
Within
each
a
other.
week of each other, and that's like super unprecedented and kind of bad business if you think about it. Like, they're both kind of screwing each other by coming out at the same time, in that no matter what, there's going to be a choice that people are going to make because they're
Sure.
both expensive things and they're both video game consoles.
But
Also
I mean,
very similar consoles.
Yeah.
but you don't want to be a year late on that, right?
I mean,
a lot
I
of people
guess.
will have already made that $400 or $500 purchase the
Right.
year before,
Right.
So they're already locked into that console,
Right. Yes. I think that by the next year, though, you'll also see like price drops and
Yeah.
things. There's more content you actually want to play there and whatever. So
Let me start by asking you this: Who rushed it out the door? Who rushed it out the door to meet the other console?
man, that's a good question. I think they both rushed out the
Yeah, I was
door.
going to say,
honestly.
even from being slightly outside, it seems like they
Sure.
both just kind of went, we have to beat each other and get out by the holiday.
Totally.
And,
I mean, we had a piece that went up today about day one patches that I wrote. That's like,
Yeah.
it's because they're both rushing so much.
Yeah.
It's not. There are all these other reasons that you could describe it to, right? You could say like, oh well, maybe they didn't want the OS to leak on the factory line, or all these other things that are sort of maybe part of it, but the real reason is like they just were working on it until the last possible second.
Well, yeah, I mean, part of that is just rushing out to hit the holidays, right? I mean, that's
Sure,
to
absolutely.
to
They
get
have
it
to.
out
They
in
have to hit the holidays
to get it out in November. But I'm wondering if one of them feels like if it feels like one of them got a head start. I mean, reading your 2 reviews, it seems like the PlayStation's maybe a little bit more baked as an overall experience.
Yeah, so the PlayStation, like the big functionality, the big sell on the PlayStation is being able to stream games, and that stuff works really well, and it works right now, and it worked the day that people got home with their consoles. They had to download a patch and whatever, and that sucks, but it still works, and it works really well, whereas Microsoft has had to delay some of their functionality. In their console, it didn't feel as finished, but I mean, it still isn't really done. I'm still getting patches right now, and the console comes out tomorrow.
And certain stuff is pushed back all the way to like January, right?
Streaming, yeah, streaming was straight up pushed back until, and not even January, like early 2014, so whatever that means. And so yeah, it definitely feels like the Xbox came in a little hotter than PS4. But there's more stuff there, so there's trade-offs.
Yeah, I mean, the Xbox is kind of a $500 media center, right? That's a big focus of that.
And it comes with a super fancy camera. It comes with a bunch of microphones in that camera, and all the stuff that it does with that is pretty impressive. But is it worth another $100 for something that is like a quick way to jump into Hulu? Also, I don't know that it is.
Also, I mean, it seems a generation ago that it might have made sense to make Media Center the focus from the respect that maybe people are willing to pay a couple $100 for primarily a Media Center experience. But now the Chromecast exists, right? I mean, now you can do pretty much all the streaming HBO Go, for example,
you can get your
for $25. So if and I guess this is probably a good way to start with these, because it seems to me that the difference is we've got a gaming console on one side, console first, Media Center second. That's the PlayStation. The Xbox flips them around. I mean, what's the better of the two approaches?
That is really up to what you want it for, right? Like, I really love that I woke up this morning, I walked into my living room, I said, Xbox on, Xbox go to music, and there was music playing in 3 seconds. And that's amazing. Like, that is legitimately really cool every single time I do it. I don't know that I would pay $500 for that ability, but it's really cool. As far as like a dude who buys video games and plays them, like the PlayStation 4 is the obvious choice of the two, because it's $100 less for something that does basically the same thing as the Xbox One, right? Like, games on both look super good. Neither of them has like a major exclusive that you need to have right now. So the real games that you're going to end up playing on both of these are like Assassin's Creed 4 and Battlefield 4, and those games are on everything. You can honestly play them right now on your PC, right? Like, if you wanted to say screw it to all this console stuff, the best games that are coming out on both are games that are also available on PC right now, which is, I think it makes both of them kind of a harder sell, honestly.
Yeah.
That $100 price difference is pretty much entirely the Kinect. Is that right?
Solely the Kinect. Yeah. The Sony's PlayStation camera cost $60 if you buy it separately. So that's like almost $100. But it's not as good as Microsoft's camera.
What a weird. What is the reasoning behind that decision? Is it just that the Kinect is going to be so integral to the Xbox experience that you won't be able to use it without it?
Yeah. So their messaging is they're going all in on Kinect this time, whereas with Kinect on the Xbox 360, it was like a tack on, right?
It came out, a couple years after the system.
Yeah, it came several years after the system, so it could never be as deeply ingrained. And the Xbox One, I mean, you can do everything with it using your voice. Everything. Like, the YouTube app came out yesterday. I was sitting in a chair 20 feet away or 10 feet away from my television and the Xbox, and I downloaded it using just my voice without going and picking up the controller, right? Like, that's neat. And it's super deeply ingrained like that. Like, I could say install, I can go through the store, I can do all these different things just using my voice. But again, like, it depends. Is that enough for you? Like, do you care about controlling your box with your voice that much? I don't know that I do.
It's kind of a novelty.
Really, this is the.
What? It's kind of a novelty. Like, it's really interesting.
It's totally a novelty.
But this is the standout feature on the Xbox at this point.
Fully. That and live television, which is, I mean, I don't have a cable box, so I don't care at all. Do you have a cable box? You don't even have a TV, I don't think.
Well, I do now, actually.
You do?
He has a TV now.
I
he
have
joined
a TV
the
now,
19th century.
And there's a dusty PlayStation 2 that we used to play DVD. So I'm moving up in the world.
There you are. But that said, like, you don't have. I don't know that we're all super representative of the average American household.
But none of us have a cable box.
Right. Like, I had a hard time though finding somebody with a cable box. Like, on staff, I had a really hard time finding any New York staffer who had a cable box to even test the functionality, because nobody's using that. And that's a big part of their console, is being able to pump in your cable and using something called One Guide, which is like, it's a virtual guide for your television where you put in your area code and whatever, and it pumps in your TV listings. So you can do that with voice too. But like those are their two big sell points, is that you basically plug in your Xbox and you never turn it off, and you do that with everything, right? You can it wakes up super quickly with your voice, and it is your one input. You have your cable plugged into it, you use it for your TV, use it for your games, use it for movies that you download via Xbox Video or whatever else. If you want to go through Hulu or Netflix, that's also an option. But their idea is they want it to be your one Xbox One input.
one
that's-
Xbox to rule them all.
Right.
What about on a gaming from a gaming standpoint? I mean, it seems like the systems just aren't getting exclusives the way they once were.
So the exclusivity, it's stupid to make an exclusive, essentially. If you're a third-party publisher, you are losing money. Unless Microsoft or Sony pays you a bunch of money.
Yeah, it's stupid for the developers, but it's great for the systems, right?
It's totally. But that money to give publishers to make those games exclusive doesn't really exist anymore, right? Like, it doesn't make sense for Microsoft to give however many millions of dollars to EA to make their game exclusive. It doesn't necessarily, the money just isn't there to do that. Like, it's a huge waste of money, essentially, in so many words, to do that.
And it's also so much easier at this point to build something that's cross-platform, because the Xbox and the PlayStation are basically PCs. The components inside
they're both
no
x86
different.
consoles, PCs, or architecture. They're both made out of basically off-the-shelf PC components.
You can more or less reuse the same exact code for all three platforms with some mild tweaks, whereas, in the PlayStation Dreamcast days, you had to build a game for the Dreamcast, and then you had to work on porting it over, and that barrier doesn't exist anymore.
Sure. I think it's also that first-party or exclusives a lot of times come from first-party studios. It's not necessarily that it's from third parties making a game exclusive. It's like Halo was an exclusive because Microsoft bought Bungie. Like that's how that works. In the same way that right now the exclusives that you see there are, for the most part, companies that Microsoft or Sony owns, or they have a relationship with, that they give them a bunch of money to make these things. Like Killzone is not a good game, but it's very pretty, and it's because Sony said, like, we will give you a whole bunch of money to make this game launch on our console. And years ago, they worked out an exclusivity agreement with Killzone. So, yeah, it's like not that simple anymore. Basically, is what I'm trying to say. I don't know. It's
Unless you're Nintendo and you make your own games.
Right. Nintendo makes all their own.
20-year-old franchises.
Right.
Still milking for content. I'm not going to notice any performance differences between these two systems at all.
Very minor, and it's at launch stuff for the most part. Like, there's some games that run in 720 on Xbox, and some games that run in 1080 that don't run in 1080 on Xbox, that run on PS4. I don't know that matters, and I don't know that it's going to matter in the long run. I think it matters to the most extreme crazy people who buy the stuff on day one, but like
and they're probably buying both systems if they're that crazy.
They probably are, right? And if not, then they probably shouldn't care that much, because it really doesn't matter that much. Like, it really doesn't impact gameplay that much. And if you're going to a console for the hottest game visuals, you are already making a mistake. Like, you have already gone down the wrong path if you are going to a home game console for your prettiest graphics. Just build a PC. Like, that's how you're gonna get the prettiest graphics. Period. Always, forever. Right? Like, anyway. Yeah.
So it seems like in past generations it wasn't unusual to own a PlayStation 3 and an Xbox 360.
Right.
Is there any incentive at all to own these two devices at the same time?
Not
to shell out $1,000?
Not necessarily this second. I mean, unless you're doing this for a living or you're a developer,
sure.
Probably not the best idea. They just aren't dramatically different right now. That stuff is going to come as time goes on. Like in March, I think March is the first big release with Titanfall. That's a major Xbox exclusive. And that's going to sell consoles. That will be a dividing line. That will be like a Call of Duty-esque huge thing. But otherwise, those games aren't really... That's what's going to change. That's what's going to split it, right? Like, because games, all things equal on these two consoles, hardware-wise, which they basically are, games look good on both. Like, Assassin's Creed 4 looks good on both. Battlefield looks good on both, period.
Exclusives are going to split it, but we're just not going to see exclusives the way we used to.
We will as time goes on, but it
just
won't be...
not as launch titles? Is that the...
I mean, it's harder with launch titles, I think, because launch titles tend to not be great, and I think that they don't want to waste that stuff on launch also because the install base isn't there as much. There isn't an incentive for a developer to release that stuff as much at launch because there just are fewer millions of people to sell it to.
Sure, right before the holidays, it doesn't make sense to totally block yourself off.
And there's also these
systems.
huge install bases on consoles that people are still buying. The Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 and even the Wii or the Wii U are selling, less so the Wii and the Wii U, are still selling really well, and there's a lot more incentive to make your game there. We're also seeing a lot of these games straddle generations. Like the stuff that I can play now, like the best stuff I can play right now on PS4 and Xbox One is also on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, and that's a big problem. The
Kinect is obviously much better. They're making a much bigger play. It's obviously integral if they're not selling it without it at this point. What is it? Is it just about controlling the interface? I mean, what is it actually bringing to the table for $100
I think the argument that Microsoft might make is that there's unique gameplay experiences you can have with the Kinect. And I have had very few of those. Yeah. I mean, I've had
I saw
plenty of unique
little bit of this
ones
in the video.
There's a little bit of that in the video. I did a little Just Dancing, but like outside of dance games and the occasional goofy sports game, they're not very.
So casual.
Those aren't even really good.
Casual users, maybe.
Maybe, but casual users aren't spending $500 on a game box. So it's like. Yeah, that's a huge problem.
I'm wondering if that's going to be the case now that it seems like Nintendo's kind of out of the picture, right? I mean, there's really two primary gaming systems right now.
I think that if you're going to buy games for a kid right now, you should buy them a Nintendo 3DS and not a Wii U or a Wii or anything else, right? Like, it's $150, it's not going to break, and it's got a trillion good games on it that has recognizable characters in it. Pokemon is there. But if you are, I mean, this stuff... For the more casual folks, like there's Kinect Sports Rivals, which is a launch game, and that's all Kinect, and it kind of sucks. It's like Wii Sports, but you use your body, and the controls don't work great, and it's not very fun. Like with something like Wii Sports,
though, fantastic.
Otherwise, perfect. Yeah. Graphics are stellar. No, it's not it's not god awful. It's more of a tech demo than a game, though. You know, and a lot of the stuff that they use Kinect in games, it's wholesale. You are using the Kinect for everything to control it, and the Kinect isn't good enough to do that, so it doesn't really work.
Is the PlayStation Eye even a going concern anymore? I mean, nobody talks about it.
No, I don't think that. I legitimately don't understand why they really.
They're selling it for the 4 at least. I mean,
they are. Exist. Yeah, you can buy a PlayStation camera for your PlayStation 4, and it's not terrible. I have one in my house. It even works with voice commands and stuff too, which is kind of neat. But it's like every other PlayStation camera they've ever released, it will find a very small market and very few games will be made for it. Almost assuredly.
Just because, that's not Sony's play at this point?
They never really go all in on peripherals. The same thing happened with Move. The same thing, I don't think that they don't support it with games, and there aren't enough people buying it, and they don't push it. Like, Move came out, and they basically were like, all right, that's out, goodbye, and left. And you're like, really? You didn't support it at all? Like, come on. And it's kind of a good peripheral.
It was pretty neat. I think they've clearly made the calculated decision that like motion controlled gaming it's just not a thing that anybody cares about. The Wii kind of caught people by surprise because it was new and interesting at the time, and then
it was a $200 game.
Yeah, it was a $200 thing, and now they're just kind of like, well, we did that. That was fun while it lasted, and they've moved on.
It's also that the Wii Sports is really, really intuitive. You walk up and you see somebody swing their controller, and you say, "Oh, that person on screen swung their racket. I get it." And that's it. The same thing goes for bowling or any of this other stuff. Whereas with Kinect Sports, you're like, get on a jet ski and virtualize your hand movements. And that's stupid and not intuitive. And I don't want to do that. Like, it's not even fun. So yeah, there's bigger problems there. It's the applications that they're putting on there aren't good uses of Kinect.
Yeah. You even said that basically Microsoft is hoping that by forcing this to be packaged with it, they're hoping developers are going to build that game, and Sony has just clearly decided that game is never going to come.
The other side of this
isn't going to happen.
Is that people might be sold initially on using it for motion and or for using it for voice control, and that is the Trojan horse. That in 2 years there are enough people who have this console who have gotten used to using Kinect, and they say, all right, well now there's a reason for us to develop for this. So maybe in 2 years this will all be totally different. Right now, the games that exist there are kind of bad. Forza 5 has some of it. Like there's head tracking in it, so you like move your body and you see the game, like the character in game, but it just screws with your view. It's like not useful at all.
Is the only way you can do voice control with the PlayStation 4 to buy the camera?
Correct.
Okay.
No, that's not true. You can use the microphone also, but the headset microphone.
The headset.
But it's total junk, so you shouldn't do that.
I think the other reason Microsoft's kind of all in on the Kinect right now is because they've realized that this is something they can implement beyond just the Xbox, right? I mean, they're moving this. They're making a big play into the PC space. It's going to be really interesting to see alternate interfaces for that. It's been a big hit with the hackerspace. They're making a play in 3D printing, so maybe there's some 3D scanning possibilities. I mean, they just see this as this like. Because it was such a huge success, and so many people did
successful, like 40 million or something.
But even like well beyond gaming, like the really cool stuff. I mean, there was a while there where 2 or 3 times a week we were writing about these really awesome hacks people were doing at the Kinect.
Yeah. I'm really excited to see what happens with the new Kinect because it's way better than the last Kinect.
Light years beyond.
It's unbelievably better. It's still not perfect. It's still far from perfect, but it's way, way better than the original one. So it'll be super interesting. And the PC one is already out there. I think I think it was this summer that they started getting out for beta and stuff.
Yeah,
something like that.
The SDK is out there.
It was recent. It was pretty recent. Shut up, Terrence.
Sorry, Terrence, leave. Terrence, please leave. Staying on peripherals for a second. This was kind of this really interesting story that came out from Microsoft and then Sony about all of these different interfaces they were apparently looking to do. Some kind of smell-o-vision on the Xbox, an all-touch controller on the PlayStation. In the end, though, they were both pretty loyal to not only last generation but just controllers in general.
Standard controller design.
NES, really.
It's weird because I think that they're both sort of beholden to that there is a huge. There's like an understood vocabulary for using a game controller, and because it's only like derivate so
if
far
somebody
from
like the feedback we've been getting on our site, I mean, it's been largely positive. But if you move anything around slightly, it's going to really piss people off. You know, same on Facebook.
Right.
Every time Facebook does a redesign, people flip out. So something that's just so kind of ingrained in your muscle memory as a controller. I mean, I can see them tweaking something slightly, and people just losing their ass over it.
Yeah. Even something as basic as on the Xbox One gamepad, the home button, like the Xbox button that brings you back to the dashboard, used to be right in the center, and now it's moved up like an inch, which is actually really smart because it means that you won't accidentally hit it with your thumbs if you're pressing like start or select.
But you threw it out the window the first time you saw it.
But I freaked out and I threw it and I screamed. No, I am still going to push the button that doesn't exist, basically, right? So I'm still like tapping an empty space in the middle of my controller occasionally, and like, oh, I'm a dummy.
And yelling and screaming.
Right.
5 hours a day.
Oh, not again.
5 hours a day for 8 years will do that.
That's right.
To you, right?
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, you definitely get that muscle memory ingrained, and yeah, it's the same thing on a PS4 controller. They moved the start and select buttons just a little bit, and now it's like, oh god, what happened?
No.
Oh no, what do I? And it's like not even a big change at all. But the stuff that they were doing is really interesting, and like you're right, they did end up basically with the same gamepads.
Yeah.
That I mean, there's like minor tweaks on both, but they're pretty much newer versions of the old gamepads. And the stuff that they were going to do is super weird. Like the Sony thing, Sony is the one who had the all-touch controller.
Yeah.
And that sounds like Steam's controller, honestly. Have you guys talked about the Steam controller at all?
We haven't.
I don't think we have.
The weirdest thing in the world.
It seems super weird.
It's so weird.
Seems...
And kind of amazing.
Is it amazing?
It's honestly really kind of amazing.
I haven't used it, so I can't really judge. But
so here's why it's interesting to Brian Heater.
Mm-hmm.
I know Terrence will like it because you're a dweeb about this stuff. But Brian, I don't think cares about this stuff. So
I'm sorry, what? Steam?
Exactly.
Like water vapor? Or
right.
What are
We're talking specifically about water vapor.
Yep.
No, the Steam controller is it's got 2 touchpads instead of thumbsticks.
Yep.
And the touchpads are haptic. Mm-hmm. So you actually feel resistance. Like it does feel like there's something there, but you're looking down at it and there's nothing there, and it's kind of incredible. Like I think it has this huge impact that might happen beyond game controllers. Like it seems like something that'll impact touch kind of everywhere. Like haptics or something that I hadn't really encountered until that. It's really impressive. Like, and so that's specifically why I bring this up is the Sony controller with all touch. Like that kind of could work, and it's interesting.
It could
that they
work,
didn't.
but it can't be the primary controller of the system. They could come out with an all-touch controller.
Totally.
I mean,
but if they packaged that with the PS4, people would have rioted in the street.
I think you're absolutely right.
Would
Yeah, and that's kind of the situation with the Steam controller. Is like this is really neat, and this probably shouldn't be the only method to control things because it's not going to work with everything.
But you can also make calculated risks when it's the first controller for like a totally new platform.
It's definitely
right?
a different position
once
for them.
Once you're starting off with that.
But that's actually a perfect point to make here because Sony and Microsoft are entrenched and they kind of can't change it dramatically, whereas Steam is in a position where they can do whatever they want.
But as you said, you can totally Trojan horse it, which is you can come out with a peripheral 2 years later, like the Kinect, and then that can eventually become an integral part of the system. You're kind of it's almost like a trial, right? You're sticking it out there and seeing how people react to it. And they both have the money to do that.
Yeah. But it's really been interesting that they didn't make huge changes on these things because they kind of need to at a certain point. Like, I guess Microsoft gets away with it by being like, well, you've got Kinect, so that's a totally different input method, which is true.
Is there anything that you heard in all of these like crazy rumors that were flying around, smell-o-vision, for example, that you feel like was a loss that didn't get incorporated into these?
No. I definitely think that there could be more touch-based stuff, and I think Sony is making the right choice in going towards that with the touchpad. I'm kind of honestly completely shocked that Microsoft didn't also do something like that.
Well, they got the gesture control. They decided they don't need touch.
Right.
It's just like you can wave your arm.
That stuff, let me tell you something that doesn't work on Kinect is gesture control does not work at all. Like, there's a bunch of gestures where you can, like, grab with both hands and pull. That does not work. Straight up. Does not ever, not even a little work. Does not at all work.
How integral is tablet control going to be moving ahead? I mean, obviously they're making big second screen display plays in the market, especially Microsoft with Smart Glass.
Right.
Are we going to see tablet-based controls?
Holy hell, I hope not. Man.
Not really entirely, but I can certainly see that playing a role in the gaming process.
They are really trying. Does anybody here use second screen for anything? Nope. No, right. Like, this is characterized of everybody in my life.
Yeah.
I keep hearing from Microsoft and Sony, like, second screen this,
unless
second
you're
screen that.
But everybody sits in front of a TV with a tablet. I mean,
everybody all the time.
No, people do. Like, you play with your phone. You use your laptop. You use a tablet. That is something everybody is doing now. It makes sense. They think we'll move towards that.
I guess the only thing that, like, it doesn't even really qualify as second screen is I'll queue up YouTube videos on my tablet, on my TV, but that's about it.
Well, I read email while I'm doing it, but I do use my tablet. It makes sense they would try to incorporate it.
I just don't think anybody really wants to read bios of the actors on their screen while they're watching movies. If they have their tablet up, it's because they need to check email or they're bored with what they're watching and don't want to be involved with it any deeper.
I don't think it's that they don't want to do that. I think it's that they've got an easy enough way to do that if they do want to do that.
They just bring up IMDb
or Wikipedia. I mean, these are really easy options that it doesn't necessarily need to be baked into it.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be a whole fancy thing.
The problem that you bring up, Terrence, and I think you're completely right, Brian. Like, people are using that stuff in front of their TVs, and it makes sense that they would want to take advantage of people using that stuff. At the same time, I don't think they're offering good experiences that actually make sense for you to do that.
They're not offering, like, supplemental content that you can only get through that
I just don't want supplemental content. Like, I don't have any use for that.
Like, the map, for example, is an interesting use of that.
So that's really useful, right? Like, if I'm playing a game and the option is I can press a button and pause the game and look at a map, or I have a map that's interactive right next to me on a screen, useful example of something you can do with a second screen. For the most part, on last generation, when you used the second screen, it was something really, really dumb and useless. Like, a bunch of stats are sitting there. You're like, I am never going to pull up my stats
because,
screen
again, those were all afterthoughts because this was all technology that was introduced really late into the lifespan of those devices.
And there's been some interesting stuff on Xbox One with second screen. If you're playing Dead Rising 3 and you use the second screen, it pulls up your cell phone in-game, and you can do stuff. You can see your character moving around on the map in-game like there's a GPS, and you can set objectives, and it's actually got some use there.
Is there any way
I still am never going to do that.
Well, because is there any way to do that without totally, like, losing your place in the game? I mean, can you actually multitask like that?
No.
I do think I will say this. I will say this, and if they can implement it in a good way, this is certainly. I mean, one of the things that the Wii did really well is it got everybody involved in the gaming experience, right? You could bring friends over, and there could be 5 people playing a game at once. Potentially, if you've got this supplemental stuff you're offering up, you can have a navigator for your game. I mean, like, Ben, if you're there and your fiance is sitting on the couch, potentially she could play some role in the gameplay.
She probably isn't gonna, though.
Well,
you're right, but she probably will.
It's specific to her,
I think
but
this is like a lot of these theoreticals get tossed around in meetings at companies like Microsoft and Sony, and they say, like, people could theoretically pick up the tablet and do this, and you're like, they could. They're probably not going to. Like, that's probably not something I'm going to do with my friends. Would you do that with your friends? I wouldn't do that with my friends. No, I would do other fun. I would do actually fun things with my friends instead of being like, let's check out the second screen experience.
What if you went to somebody's birthday party? And then that's what it was. It was just like,
that would
all
be
right,
a weird
guys,
birthday.
You hand out tablets at the door.
I'm going to play Call of Duty, and you guys just tell me when I should make a right and a left, okay?
Yeah. Like, I think that there's a potential for good experiences there. You could put Trivial Pursuit on your television. Everybody's got their phone in their pocket, and that's their way to play. Totally useful. Actually useful and interesting. But, like, I don't think that that's like the standard or normal for most groups of people.
Well, how open is it to developers right now? How open are these 2 platforms to developers?
They're both very open.
Okay.
They're both extreme. They've both gone out of their. They're essentially both competing with Steam and PC, so they have to be as open as possible. They're both way open right now.
So again, assuming there's some adoption here, these are really interesting potential platforms, and if you have the right people developing for them, in 8 years or so it's going to take for another generation to come out, we could see some really killer apps.
I think we could. There's definitely, and it works way better on Xbox One, not than PS4, but in general than it did on the last gen. Same thing with PlayStation. They have their own app, and it works better than it did in the past in terms of instantly connected. You do something on your thing, and it happens immediately instead of there being a little bit of a delay or some weirdness. So there's definitely more potential, but there still isn't something that I'm like, I need to have my tablet out. I don't even really use my tablet that much in general. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's just me being a weirdo and not using my tablet that much. Maybe I need a smaller tablet. You got a Nexus 7 for me?
Not for you, but I have a Nexus 7.
You should hook me up with that. I would like that. Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry.
So
total aside.
They're not terribly
PlayStation's
expensive.
better. Buy the PlayStation. It's cheaper.
If you're like a gamer dude this holiday, you should buy the PlayStation
or lady.
4. Or
if you're a lady, buy an
dude
Xbox.
is non-gender specific.
Actually, I think it
in
is.
general.
I think Dudette came out specifically because of
all right.
Dude
Well, dudes and dudettes
There we go.
should definitely, who are into games, I would go with PlayStation 4. If I was going to buy one of the two this holiday, I'd buy PlayStation 4. I'm lucky and I have both, and they didn't cost me anything. Suckers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're looking for a new game reviewer, so if you want these two systems. There we go.
I'm actually legitimately pretty excited to actually play them now. I will say that.
Now that the whole review process is over.
You're not going to take
like-
a break? I mean, are you going to go home and just start playing them?
As soon as I am done working tonight, I
Yep.
am going to actually start playing games. Like, I've played a lot of games on both of them so far, but like the first hour.
Yeah, you haven't sat down and played a game.
Right,
You haven't
right.
done I'm going to work through to the end
Yeah.
and beat it.
I want to play Assassin's Creed 4 and actually play it.
Let
Let
me wrap up by asking you this, and this is related to what we were talking about before. $100 million to develop the gamepad for the Xbox? That's crazy, right?
Wait. Just the new one, or is that like
Yeah. One, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what they're trying to
$100
say.
million for that barely perceptible
Well,
tweak?
that's
to
the whole
gamepad?
thing, right? Is they were throwing around some crazy ideas. And
I'm sure they spent a lot of money on nothing, and then
A lot of
went back
money
to-
on things that shoot chemicals. that
Smell-o-vision
smell like
is
things
not
in your
cheap.
face.
Smell-o-vision is not cheap.
I mean, we
What
walked
if it
through
shot
like their
spider eggs into your eyes?
That's some immersive gameplay right there.
I mean, they would get some great coverage on that.
It's true.
Everybody would be talking about the Xbox this holiday season if it shot spider eggs in your eyes.
spider egg problem
Oh, man.
with the Xbox One.
I can't remember who I was talking to. I was talking to somebody about the smell-o-vision thing recently, and just thinking about what a horrible, horrible idea that is. Like,
For
regardless,
zombie games.
Sure.
no, even if you can pull it off.
Yes.
Because basically you've got to have like cartridges filled with chemicals to produce smells. And what happens if you run out of one of those chemicals and what's supposed to smell like fresh cut grass all of
Well-
a sudden just smells like dog crap?
But
in your
also,
living room, and you can't get it out.
Fruit Ninja, which we were talking about aside, name a game that you'd like to smell. What? I mean,
I don't know any that I could.
most of these, there's a
Maybe
lot of
root beer tapper.
war.
Nah.
Yeah, exactly. any candy, Candy Crush.
Yeah, that'd be okay.
A candy-based game. Maybe that's what the casual gaming market needs is smell-o-vision.
Yeah.
God, that just seems like the dumbest thing of all the things.
And at the
I
very
would have
least,
no-
though,
it's especially like Microsoft is doing some really interesting things too with that, like Illuma Room. You guys both saw that at E3? Not
Yeah.
E3, at CES.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you see
Which
that?
one was that?
Illuma Room.
Illuma Room.
Illuma Room is essentially, it works with Kinect, and there's a
Oh,
projector in the back
the
of your room.
projectors? Yeah.
And it blows up the screen beyond the screen. Like that's really interesting and actually innovative. And like smell-o-vision? What?
I don't
Somebody should have said that in the boardroom, and somebody would have been like, "Fire that man! Fired!"
I think that's
Get
what
him out.
happened. I
Get
think
him
that's
out.
what happened. I think think some crazy person tossed out the idea,
And then they
it
were
get
fired
written down,
immediately.
and it made a really good story.
I would really like to hear what that would be. Like, I need to know what that meeting was that could have
Do
possibly.
you think
been,
John
like,
Waters snuck into a Microsoft development meeting and pitched smell-o-vision?
That'd be excellent. Now I want to see John Waters conducting a Microsoft meeting. It would be the best.
It does seem like when there's going to have to be some radical changes for the next generation, right?
I think that it's getting there, and it's going to come, but it's going to come out of weird places, though, right? Like the Oculus Rift.
Yeah, it's going to be a
huge
third
part of
party.
that change.
It's definitely not going to be Microsoft. I mean,
No.
Microsoft. This is the thing about Microsoft. It is not just a gaming thing. This is just across the board. They've got such smart people developing such interesting things. Microsoft Research Labs is doing consistently interesting things, but Kinect is the only example
Of a
I can think of in
commercially
the past
successful one.
of one that they really actually released to
Yeah, right.
consumers. Everything else is just kind of about sitting around and waiting. I mean, the UI of Xbox is basically Metro, right? It's
It is
basically
directly.
LiveTile.
It is literally running Windows 8 on it.
And
is it actually literally running Windows 8?
It's a pared down version of Windows 8.
The reasoning was Windows Phone is selling so well.
Oh, clearly.
That people really want LiveTile.
It's amazing, actually, that it works really well on the Xbox. Like, the modern UI design or whatever, they had it sort of on 360, and it works well on one. Like, it's a good design for a game console. It's such a bad design for a PC. What are they thinking?
They must think they must think this is going to be a gateway, right? That people are going to get really used to the tiles, and obviously they're going to want to run out and buy a Surface.
I don't even mind tiles. It's just like when you load a tile and it goes to your desktop, it just makes me want to scream like, this is the dumbest thing in the world.
That's sort of the problem, is that it's just so amazingly inconsistent.
It's completely inconsistent. It's like two OSs that shouldn't be merged together. God, man.
Do we just want to
so frustrating.
I just wanted to remind you that the Engadget Podcast is brought to you by Chevrolet, dedicated to pushing boundaries of automotive innovation to provide cleaner, more efficient, and better connected vehicles to enhance your driving experience. Chevrolet, find new roads.
When are they going to put live tiles on my Chevy? That's what I want to know.
When you get one of these guys in there,
we're going to put that in the dashboard.
Is that a Lumia 984? Or is that a 1026?
The 926.
7864.
This is the. I actually had to look at the number. That's the 2520. Well, it is consistent because we did see the 1520 and the 2520.
It's consistent in their incredibly stupid, illogical naming pattern.
It's such
totally
a nice
consistent.
tablet, though. I mean, especially
very
after.
pretty.
I might be the sole detractor on staff, but I think the Surface is such an ugly piece of
hardware.
hardware.
It's definitely the ugliest.
It's just
incredibly
ugly. It looks like it was made in 1998.
Yeah,
that's kind of why I love it.
You like it for the wrong reasons.
I like the aggressive angles, like the really weird retro futurism of the design.
Like how heavy and stupid it is, in that it's heavy and stupid.
It's not that heavy and stupid.
It's really heavy. It's pretty stupid.
I have one upstairs right now. We can go. I can show you how dumb it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of stupid. Don't get me wrong. I'm not rushing out and buying a Surface. Let's make that abundantly clear.
No.
This is a good example of what we might.
Heavy. This is
definitely
as heavy as the Surface. Maybe not the Surface Pro, but this is as heavy as the Surface.
I have a Surface Pro, so maybe that's why I'm thinking of that.
The Surface Pro
is an RT. That's fair. It's. I don't think it's as heavy as the RT though.
I think it might be.
Is this the one that Dana had? This is Dana's review copy.
I also I hate glossy surfaces so much that makes me so angry. God, like just
really pretty.
Okay, there are matte versions. You can buy a matte one.
Good.
To the colors.
Because we've been holding this and manhandling it for all of about 30 seconds,
and it's covered in.
Yeah,
they did a weird thing.
It looks
where,
like a crime scene. I mean, this looks like I should be dusting for prints.
They did a weird thing where I'm gonna get this wrong, but they came out with 4 colors. 2 of them are matte, 2 of them are glossy. But it's something where like red is glossy and white is glossy, but blue and black are both matte.
Makes sense.
But I mean, you can't get a red matte, for example.
Yeah. I mean, the Moto X is actually the same way. The customizer, like, there's a slew of matte colors, and they're all like those cool. You can get a matte navy blue and a matte black and a matte gray.
You're not getting wood.
But
you're making a big mistake.
If you want red or white, they're all glossy finishes. I guess it's just like
all the materials they had down at the Motorola factory in Texas. It's a really.
Are these built in Texas too? No.
I'm
sorry, I'm getting things confused.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
This is designed in Finland, but probably built
made in China for sure.
Right. But
made in China.
But I don't know. I mean, this certainly gives me hope about the merger or the acquisition.
How much does that cost?
This is 500. I want to say 500.
Are we gonna look that up? You can do that.
Yeah, it's 500 off contract. It's about $100 less on contract.
It took me like a year and a half to convince myself to buy an iPad for $500. I just can't fathom.
That's another weird thing. I mean, so this is
this
is $50 more than the Surface. Part of the reason why is because there's only LTE options, which does seem like a weird choice.
That does seem weird.
It is a very phone carrier or phone maker decision to do, though.
Yeah.
To build LTE in there automatically.
And to be fair, I was a guy who, like, when the iPad first came out, I said I didn't understand the purpose of buying a tablet that was Wi-Fi only. I was like, I don't get it. It's a mobile device. You need to have LTE, and I've kind of now completely...
And now you're carrying a Chromebook around.
Yeah. now I'm the guy who goes, why would you need LTE in your tablet?
That
seems stupid.
Why would you need a desktop on your computer? I don't. But yeah, I think as long as Nokia is making all the devices for Microsoft, I think it's good potential.
It's really weird. So this is in the Xbox One review. I specifically pointed out like that that disparity. Like Microsoft is capable of making a pretty thing. Like the controller is nice, the Kinect is nice. The box is ugly as hell.
Ugly.
Just crazy ugly. And like the Surface, I agree with you completely. Like Surface is horribly ugly. So like somebody at Microsoft knows how to make something pretty. Maybe they hide them. Maybe they're chastised when they make something pretty.
Right? That's the difference, right? Though is that you can stick the Xbox in a cabinet. It's a lot harder to do it with a tablet.
Yeah.
Well, you have to have a properly sized cabinet to stick it in. That is a gigantic, hulking mass
Hopefully
of hardware.
with some kind of ventilation in there, too. You don't want that.
Maybe a refrigerator. If you have an extra refrigerator laying around, you could just stick it in there.
You could build a kegerator and store your Xbox inside there along with your beer.
Let's move back to that, actually. How hot do these things get?
Not actually that hot. Really? Surprisingly. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't. Neither of them get too hot. Even when they're running a game and several apps, neither of them get super hot.
Which is particularly impressive with the PlayStation 4, being as how it's about a quarter of the size of the Xbox One.
It's very small.
It's very tiny and thin.
Comparatively, it is super small, yeah.
Very pretty, actually.
They also had a lot of, I think, broken ones as a result initially.
Yeah, I heard that. They were saying it's because they were damaged in shipping, supposedly,
Indeed.
but we'll see about that.
They said it was 1% or so of people who were affected, and if they sold
1% is a lot.
It's like 10,000 people or something, right?
Yeah.
I'm not good at math, guys. I hope that was right.
I have no idea.
Don't smash the tablet, Brian.
I'm so angry at them for designing an ugly Xbox. I don't.
Cool it. Your passion about video games is too much. Can't take it.
News follows on the news that the acquisition has gone through. The shareholders have approved it. No shocker there.
No, I mean,
shareholders.
What were they going to do if they
Microsoft
at Nokia?
Yeah,
gotcha.
Why would they reject it? What would they have to gain from that? Further seeing their stock prices decline until they ultimately fade into complete obscurity and obsolescence? Yeah, that's right.
For example. Yeah.
It was a foregone conclusion that was going to happen. So now,
it'd be real funny if they all entered into a suicide pact and said, "Screw it, we're sticking with it," and kept it going. The ship went down.
We're not going to see a Surface 3, are we?
A Surface 3? Sure, you
Probably
are.
Almost
think so?
certainly,
You
right?
think
I think it's going to
continue to build their own proprietary?
I think I think they're going to continue to build their own proprietary hardware, and eventually that'll be moved over to the Nokia arm that they've just purchased. But I think it's going to take them.
Slap Microsoft.
I think they'll slap
logos.
Microsoft logos on Nokia hardware eventually. I don't think that's going to happen within the next 6 months, though. I think you're going to probably see at least a year of them running on separate tracks before they finally get folded. I mean, look at how long it's taken Google to clear all the paths at Motorola and finally start having a serious hand in the development of handsets over there.
That's true, and Google's a much more tightly run ship.
Yeah, they're much more nimble.
It won't be for lack of wanting to do that, but it'll just be for probably bureaucracy. Right?
Yeah,
because you're gonna have to merge the Surface team into the Nokia team.
Yeah, and Nokia probably has a backlog of 4 or 5 handsets or an additional tablet that are already relatively far along in design and production that would be a waste of money to simply cancel. And
also,
the
there's
Surface
no
3 is
CEO at
probably
Microsoft.
already in production or design at this point.
Are they going to keep Nokia around as a brand? I mean, they've got it for worldwide recognition, right? I mean, knowing Microsoft for the most part, they would probably want to just call everything the Microsoft 2520. But given the fact that Nokia is still the largest, as far as I know, still the largest handset. No, have they been surpassed?
Yeah, I'm 99% sure.
Okay, but they were until very
Samsung,
recently.
right?
I think it's Samsung.
Samsung
I think Nokia is now number 3 or 4 on that list.
Okay.
They've dropped pretty far.
Yeah. Okay, never mind.
smartphone
Just call it the
adoption rates have
Microsoft
really picked up,
2520.
huh? Jeez. Yeah. So, and Elop is maybe being rumored as the CEO of Nokia.
I mean, he started at Microsoft.
Man, that would be.
It seems like the obvious choice.
He's the person who did the whole Windows Phone thing. He's the person who led the acquisition. A lot of people. There's a lot of conspiracy theories.
He seems like
conspiracy theories are fun though.
Yeah.
The mobile side of Microsoft seems like maybe not the one I would lean on if I was entering as CEO, just considering their track record of producing not great things. Maybe, I guess I worry for the Xbox division at Microsoft, right? Because their shareholders love to call it out as the part of Microsoft that
Makes money.
Right. I don't understand. There's a lot of nastiness towards the Xbox division at Microsoft from outside, and it's really bizarre, especially from shareholders. And
Well,
stuff.
it's not. I mean, it's not going to.
It's not part of their enterprise
It's not going to be
business, so
software and services. I do think that they realize that this generation of consoles probably not going to sell as well as last generation console,
not,
and the next one, it's going to continue a decline.
But it's so
Mobile is
short-sighted
still
because
growing.
that brand is so huge. Like growing their Xbox brand is what keeps Microsoft relevant to people under 50. Like it's enormously important to them, I think, outside of the business crowd. And it's so shocking to me that they don't support it more on that.
So do you think they should expand it beyond game consoles? Is that
Well, they've already started doing that. That's what Xbox Video and Xbox Music is them trying to rebrand Zune into something useful.
It makes sense from a software perspective for software that's going to be on these devices, but I think you're asking like,
are we going to see instead of a Surface? Are we going to see an Xbox
Well, there's a
tablet?
rumor that would be the handheld gaming thing.
That
right?
rumor has been that rumor has been going on for a while, but that does just feel like them slapping a label on something, and I think that will dilute the brand.
I can't see them.
I would already say that Xbox Music and Xbox Video are doing that. Like they're already kind of diluting the brand in that they're not really representative of the Xbox experience, and they're not really good.
Well, I think
services.
the thing is they want them to be representative of the Xbox experience because
certainly
they
do.
want the Xbox to be a one-stop media center, and that's their big bet. So the music and movie stuff like that makes sense to rebrand that and make that part of the core experience.
Sure,
it makes
but
sense to
slapping
incorporate
Xbox on a tablet or a phone makes a lot less sense. Making additional hardware beyond the
But
console makes
did
less
You're
sense.
probably on a
does
lot of logic
slapping-
in Microsoft.
Yeah,
Does
I don't
slapping
know.
Windows onto a phone make sense? I mean, are people so attached and in love with the Windows brand that it makes sense to call it Windows Phone?
I mean, I'd argue yes. I mean, and that's not a new thing. I mean, they slapped Windows on a phone.
No, I'm well
before
aware of that. But
Apple
they
or
did.
Google
I'm
even thought about making
aware of that,
smartphones.
Terrence. I am more than 10 years old. But
Are you?
I
just thought you
sometimes
were-
I don't act like it. No, but when they were trying to do a complete overhaul, a complete rebrand of it, I don't know if it necessarily made sense for them to keep the Windows name around.
I think it does, if only because people don't have the same emotional attachment to the Windows brand that they do, that Apple fans do. There's clearly a difference there, but it's a household name. Most people still run Windows on their home computers.
But is it a positive? Is it a positive impression? I mean, do people have positive attachments to Windows?
I think it's a positive impression that people assume then that this will tie into their existing workflow and ecosystem better because I already run Windows on a computer.
You don't think the Microsoft brand is enough to do that?
I don't.
I don't know. I think
Definitely not.
people think Windows, they don't think Microsoft. I think the brand of the operating system and the platform is much more important than the brand of the company.
So you think the whole reason they kept Windows around was so that people thought that their PC and their mobile devices were going to talk well together?
Yeah, it's about building an ecosystem. They figured that was the thing. We need to put that brand front
It's
and
also
center.
that the UI on their phones was based on Windows.
Well, sure.
Right.
I mean, and
That's
just
just
to be fair,
yeah.
at this point, it's running Windows. It's the same exact thing, just with a different UI, slightly different UI. But I mean, even the code is the same that's running on the phones. I mean, you just change the name of it. That seems sort of a weird thing. Be like, oh, it's Windows here, but it's, I don't know, make up a name for something.
I mean, clearly
Durango.
Yeah, it's Durango on a phone. It's Windows on a PC. It's Xbox OS on the console.
It would be like if Apple called their desktop operating system and their mobile operating system two different things.
Well, I mean... Yeah.
Or it would be like if Google called their desktop operating system and their mobile operating system two different things.
There's bigger disconnects between those two things, though, than there is on the Windows side, I'd argue.
On the Apple side? On Google, sure, I'll give you that.
On the Apple side as well. I mean,
They're slowly moving them towards each other.
They're
UIs are
moving
different?
towards each other, but the UIs are drastically different.
Yeah.
I mean...
But if they were
OS
doing
X
it
is
for the
still a
sake of just
desktop.
people thinking that these two things could speak together, then they wouldn't have called it something different.
No.
All right. Anyway,
It's-
Microsoft, good move. I'll be buying a Windows Phone this weekend
Will you?
because
Done.
it's going to work really well with my Xbox.
Were
right?
we positive on the Lumia 2520?
I
is
don't
what
even
it's
know.
called?
Yes.
Yes.
We're positive.
The 2520 and the...
I know it's
We're
pretty
positive
looking,
it's
but
a
we
thing.
actually like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it runs Windows RT.
Yep.
We liked it.
Well,
Nah, okay.
That doesn't sound right.
There we go.
I mean, I think the
We're like-
argument is that it's the best Windows tablet you could get. Now
That's like the
take that.
least smelly piece of poop. Is what you're saying.
This is
Like this one doesn't smell as bad as
It's
the
the
other. It's
least
But
like,
look how
great.
they
terrible
polish
of
this
the
turd.
terrible
I mean,
things.
this is a no. I guess it bodes well for the future of
That's fine. That's fair.
tablet.
Yeah.
Tablet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do like using their UI on phones and tablets for what it's worth. I'm not
Yeah.
just trying to bag on Windows. Like,
Yeah,
I think they have a nice UI.
and when you've got a beautiful piece of hardware to match it, it's a really
Yeah,
nice experience.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It absolutely is.
Sure. It's just I'm so stuck into an ecosystem that anything outside of it is like, oh, can't do it.
Yeah.
This is the world we live in now.
I mean, this
where
is
you lock into
this is
services
a
that can-
gorgeous tablet.
Yeah,
It really is.
it's very pretty. I like red and black.
It's very
It's a good
shiny.
color scheme even.
It's shiny. You can see who held it last.
Yep.
It's like a forensic test.
God, that is really disgusting. I
You've
don't
got
want to-
they really let you know where the NFC is on this thing too. Yeah, nice thing.
It seems like it's
good thing.
perfect for somebody like having a midlife crisis. You can buy that and
Oh,
put it in
it'll
your
match your
Corvette.
Lamborghini,
Yeah.
Is
a
there
good call.
there's like a 7 or 8 inch one? Is there?
There is a 6-inch one. It's called the 1520. It's a phone.
This is the best
phone.
conversation. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, which is also the best Windows phone.
Great.
Yeah,
I
good
know
job,
Brad just
Nokia.
reviewed that.
Yeah.
So that's he was positive. 6 inches for a phone. That's a half a sub.
Yeah, it's not a
Nope.
phone. Not a
That
phone.
is not a
or
phone.
full sub
Sorry.
if you're
I saw somebody
watching
using a
college.
Note 8 as a phone in Europe, and it was the best.
You didn't
I took a
punch them?
picture. It was so great.
I mean, if
Oh,
they're
man.
big enough to use that as a phone, you probably don't want to punch
That's
them.
yes, legitimately. He looked super
just-
metal. I was not having it. It was pretty great though. It looked ridiculous.
I'm sure.
Oh man.
I had a
Yeah,
bunch
like
of
neck tattoos of fire and stuff.
yeah.
I had a bunch of e-reader things on here. Which
Yeah,
I'm
we're
just
not
gonna
getting
skip.
to those.
I think e-readers are cool.
I was gonna mention the 800,000 Samsung Galaxy Gear number, but that turns
Yeah.
out is inaccurate.
Not surprised.
That's actually shipped, which is a fairly sizable.
That thing
difference.
isn't going to sell real well, right?
It's-
I don't think they.
Well,
they
the
think it
rumor
is
was that
either.
the story up until a day ago is that they sold 800,000, which, granted, I mean, it's not phone numbers, but that's pretty
Pretty
damn
good, yeah.
good for a device
Surprisingly
like
good.
that. Turns out that there's some numbers they shipped, that they're doing a lot of bundling with Note 3s, so you can get these devices for free in a lot of
Yeah.
places.
And
I would take one for free
half
if I
of
was
them are
buying a
probably
3.
sitting on Best Buy shelves.
Yeah, but it makes
what
I
shipped
mean,
means,
it makes
exactly.
it makes sense to bundle it because
Yeah.
you can still only use it with two
Two
phones,
phones, yeah,
right?
Right.
No, and I mean, and
Three?
if
Two?
they're willing to throw
It's
that
still
in for free
two.
when you buy
Yeah.
a Galaxy Note 3, that makes perfect sense. Like you said, I would take that for free.
Sure.
But I'm not spending $300.
But
on
then
it.
you've got it out there. You've got the first generation. If it is a good experience, people are actually using it. Next time,
If you can,
first one's always free, right?
yeah, if you can get the cost down.
It's a drug thing.
Thank you, Brian. I want to. I mean, I'm like the Dick Tracy promise of having a watch smart thing is totally neat, and I just don't think it. Like, does it work at all? Does it? It's not all voice controlled, right? It's like you touch it and stuff.
Yeah.
And,
You touch it. The screen is really small. You need a really large smartphone on your person in order to actually use it. And
Right.
you're not making calls directly off of it. The camera is on the side.
Weirdly positioned.
So I can't look at it and be
not
like,
very good.
yeah, and plan
you- I
attacks
mean, you
on
can.
mobsters
You
and
can,
stuff
but I
with
mean,
it. You know.
You just have to kind of angle it like.
Yeah,
this.
it's not for Skyping. It's
not for
creepy-
selfies.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
All
for
right.
Unless
locker room
you're
photos.
Yeah. Unless you're
It's
not trying to
seriously-
selfie your face.
It's
for other selfies. it
taking
works.
pictures so that people don't know that you have a thing to take pictures with.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the only thing
Right.
that I can
It's
think
for
of.
public sexting.
Did you
I
know
assume.
that phones in Japan, all phones in Japan that have cameras,
click sound?
They have
they
to make a
require
click
a
sound. by
click
law.
sound?
Well,
I
and
just
you
found
can't
that
turn
out
it off.
recently, and I was so disturbed by that. Just
I
deeply,
mean,
deeply affected by that.
Disturbed, except that I think that's probably a good idea.
No. It's the reason for it having to
Yeah,
exist
it's-
is what disturbs me, not that it exists. Yes, you're.
But you can probably still buy one in a panty vending machine.
Yes, indeed.
So-
I've still never seen one of those. I've been there twice. Never
Full
seen one
circle.
of those.
You're going to
You
the
just-
wrong bars. You're
Clearly.
hanging out with Tim while you go there. I think that's a problem.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
he doesn't
Matt
go to the
Smith
right panty
is always
bars.
he's always hanging out at like high schools and stuff, but not at near any of that. Which is like, what are you doing at high schools? You're an adult, you know?
Sure.
Right?
Learning
Right?
Japanese.
Matt Smith, that guy.
Learning Japanese.
Anyway, now that he's not here to defend him, let's say terrible things about him.
This would be a good time to call out the sponsor one more time on the show. I wanted to thank our podcast sponsor and also the sponsor for Expand, Chevrolet. You can find them. Chevrolet.com is the website. Find your roads.
What's the website?
Chevrolet.com.
Can you spell that for me? I'm not really sure.
T is silent.
HTTP. No, you pronounce those T's. /
Those
/
T's you do.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian.
You don't. You know what, guys? You don't actually have to put all that in front now. Browser's going to take care of that.
It knows how to do it. Like I just
Pretty
type
impressive.
in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And if you've got an Xbox, you can just say it.
You can.
It'll take you there.
My
I-
fiance types in www.thefacebook.com every time. It's adorable.
That's pretty. That's
It is
pretty
adorable.
adorable.
Until Facebook forgets to buy that,
Yeah.
that domain and takes you to
Exactly.
a much darker place. Ben Gilbert, real Ben Gilbert, over on Twitter.
On the internet.
Terrence O'Brien doesn't have Twitter.
No.
We're trying to get him on there next time. Next time we'll have a Twitter handle to give out. I'm B Heater. This has been the Engadget Podcast. This time next week, Ben will have a third console that he's reviewed.
At least.
Yeah.
Hey, there's going to be Steam boxes next year. That's a thing.
Is it going to be called the Xbox 2? No. Right?
I better not be. They really put themselves in a corner.
Are they rebooting the franchise like Spider-Man style?
That's exactly it, yeah. They're going to re-release all the launch games on the original Xbox and Xbox One.
Look forward to that. I look forward to that. I'll meet you back here in 8 years.
All right.
For another episode.
I'll look just like this.
Of the Engadget Podcast. Bye.